Welcome to the webinar today. We'll get started in just a minute. This is Dale Callahan. This webinar is on high school, keeping the end in mind. Just to make sure we are doing well here, there's a chat box. If you can look in your window, you should be seeing a couple of things. A thing that says high school, keeping the end in mind with a couple of web links, and you should be hearing me. So if you can do those things, you should see a chat box over to the right-hand side. If you can hear me, see that, if you'll just say okay or something, so I know that we're actually broadcasting, and things are good to go. So again, you should see high school, keeping the end in mind, a page up there, and be hearing me. And it looks like some of you are saying you can hear. So this is awesome because that's kind of important over a webinar. I'm going to just let a few other people pop in here. We're still getting attendees popping in at the last minute, and we'll give them a few seconds to do that before we jump right in. While we do that, there's going to be some links I will give you embedded in this. I put one in the chat room where I said the welcome. There's a website link. You don't have to do that now, but if this is something that's of interest to you, then you will be able to find it. And you should find a link back there to we are starting at 1 p.m. But I'll give it to you again. Well, let me try this. I'm going to display what's a sticky message on this, which should show up at the top. Should say dalecallahan.com/refresh. And if you were at refresh, you know what that's about. If you're not, then you have no clue. But some of the notes that are going to be showing here are coming from a website of mine, and it was from a conference we did, a local conference here in the Birmingham, Alabama area, and it was awesome. I'll say that the ladies who put that together did an awesome job. And so some of the stuff I'm talking about today is at least related and building upon that content. Now, let me tell you a little bit about what we're going to do. I'm going to go over some things about high school, keeping the end in mind, but so you know what I'm doing. Most of you probably know because you've come to us that I'm Dr. Callahan. I am the founder of Ask Dr. Callahan, which we sell high school math products. But I spend, while we do that, and we have some people that are helping us do that and helping support. If you're buying our products, thank you very much. You're probably finding that we have various people that provide support on those if you're asking us for help. But one thing that I spend a tremendous amount of time doing, I work with the university, the School of Engineering, the University of Alabama at Birmingham, and I spend a lot of time working with professionals, people that are probably like you or your spouse that are working in the industry, and you're trying to figure things out. So a lot of the things that we are going to talk about here is related to experiences from that. Now, these webinars that we're doing today, we're probably going to do them once a month. So here's the thing that would be helpful to us, and you can just email me, and it's just dcallahan at askdrcallahan.com or Dale or at dalecallahan.com, and you'll find those links on the website. Email us, Facebook us, whatever you can. We have a Facebook page under Ask Dr. Callahan. And one of the things we would like to know is these webinars, are they useful to you? What would you like us to talk about? What time of the day is best for you? Anything that's helpful for you to make these things add value to you. That's really what we're doing here, is we're trying to focus on adding value and finding ways that we can help. If you drop this, we are using a webinar. It's over the web, and it is using Google Hangouts, which is an awesome tool. I meet with my mastermind team once a week. We'll do that this afternoon using this tool, and we are all over the world. And we meet for an hour every week using this, but sometimes it's technology and it drops, and all you got to do is jump back to that link and jump right back in. Same for me. If I drop out, I'll jump right back in. So let me just jump into this. And by the way, on the chat, you can certainly ask questions. Thank you for those of you that are saying that you are, some of you are saying you do not see the sticky note. And it should be at the very top, but if it's not, I'll get it to you later. Again, the link is dalecallahan.com/refresh, but I'll show you some of that more later. So thank you very much. If you have questions that, just throw them over there in the chat box. Of course, questions after the fact, you can email it. And let me just put my email in here. I'm gonna put the easiest one to type. How about that? All the email goes to the same place. And if I spelled that correctly, that is dale@dalecallahan.com. And that's the email you can reach me at for questions, comments, anything like that. So with all that in mind, let me just jump in and talk about high school and keeping the end in mind. By the way, the important thing, so many people ask this question when we do webinars is it live? And yep, it is live, and there I am. So I am from my office at the university here. So we are going to go live, and just so you know that. All right, so let's jump in and do the talk about high school. Geez, if I would look at my notes, there it was. There's the link that I was talking about, dalecallahan.com/refresh. And on that, you'll find a few links. Again, you may not have time to go to that right now. Here's where I'm finding most of our culture is moving, is we're moving from cradle to college to cubicle. The college in the middle obviously being the key thing, and the cubicle being another key thing that we find that people are moving to in their lives. And as I'm watching this, and I'm watching this from a couple of avenues, as we homeschool and as we run a company that does homeschool, we talk to primarily moms, but some dads all over the United States. We spend a lot of time in conversations with customers, with vendors that sell to customers, people like the vendors at Veritas Press and Rainbow Resources, who talk to even more customers than we do, just because they have more people doing that. And of course, this is maybe all over the world, but primarily in the US, we see a trend. And I see it also from the university model. And I'm working now at the university with professionals, people who have gone through college and they're now in cubicle. Now it may be an office, but who cares? They're now in the career. And what we see here in the middle is that we've got the college as the key. And so I'm speaking here as a university professor, but this is the model. I mean, this is what's going on in our society. So I want to talk about what does that mean and what are some implications that's happening here. Number one, this is where many of us as parents spend our time thinking. And in grade school, we're thinking about developing basic skills and saving for college. In high school, we are thinking about preparing for tests, for entrance, for scholarships. And in this last point, we're panicking because many of you some of you are in that situation. You're trying to figure out how to pay for the stuff that you're doing. So this is where everything, if you notice, there's a hinge around the university. In grade school, we're trying to throw the money back, and we're thinking towards that, trying to make sure we do all the right stuff toward that. And in high school, there's the run after scholarships. And we find so many people that are running after scholarship dollars that are focused primarily on sports or academics, and all they're doing, the entire focus of our system is the college. I've got to get into this thing and I've got to pay for this thing. So what's the result of this thinking is, or why does this come about? How did we get here that we're so focused as parents and moving toward college? Because we think college is the success path. Because we have ended up in a cookie cutter model, not just us, not homeschoolers, not private schoolers, not public schoolers, the world as a whole. We're in a cookie cutter model. And this is what, a cookie cutter model looks like. If we build homes in a cookie cutter fashion, this is what they would look like. This is how we educate our kids. we're no different. But this is, if you look at this, these homes are very valid. They provide shelter, they provide warmth, they provide all the necessary things, but there's nothing unique. So you think if you're moving from the top corner to the bottom corner of this, what's the motivation if you're selling your home? What's the motivation? Why would you want to move from one to another? There's no value. The only time we buy new homes is because there's something of value to it, because there's something different. I have more children. I need a bigger home. I have less children at home. I need a smaller home. I need one floor. I need a basement. But when everything looks the same, there's no value. That's very much what we do in educating. And I'm finding this when I spend time with industry people, that there's no value in the workplace. And let me just tell you what corporate officers oftentimes tell me. You guys at the university are adding very little value to us, because you're punching out people who can do things, but there's no unique talents or passions. Now, the other side of this figure is, if you look at these homes in this picture, I can't serve a unique need. If somebody's handicapped, if somebody has unique desires and things, you can't serve that need here. Therefore, by being cookie cutter, I cannot serve to people to the maximum level. So this is what's happening. We're in a cookie cutter education model. And trust me, when I went to school, probably much the way you guys did, and I pretty much just, it was like herding cattle. You know, as long as you didn't mess up too bad, you got moved to the next grade. And then I came out of there, and basically as a high school graduate, and I moved into an engineering school, and it's kind of like herding cattle again. And essentially when I came out, I was now shaped like an engineer. And then a few years later in industry, I was shaped like the industry I was in, and you get so closed into this thinking that you realize, you look up years later, 5, 6 years, pick a number, and you look in the mirror and think, how did I get here? And that's where I was. I was a telecommunications engineer, and I remember looking up and thinking, how did I become a telecommunications engineer? Furthermore, I was stuck because my expertise now had branded me. And to move to anything else, I at least thought to move to anything else that there was no possibility for me to make anything but less money. So, by the way, at the graduate level, almost every single person that comes in is looking for alternatives in their life. They don't know how to get to the next place. They don't know how they got to where they're going, where they are. So we see this over and over again. Statistics tell us that 60% of the Americans' workforce, over 60%, is unhappy with where they're at in their job. Now, that means that 60% of you on this call today, on this webinar today, that's where your children will end up, if you just take the cookie cutter path, because that's where the cookie cutter path leads. That's what we're doing, and in the homeschool world, we're really no different. So, what's the result of this? As a result of a cookie cutter model, as we move kids through an educational system, or we do it at a college level, we tend to focus on their weaknesses. If a kid comes home with a report card, for instance, and they have all A's, but they have a C in English, what we do, there's some parents are going to yell and scream at their kids because they have a C in English and put them on restriction and everything. They didn't do good enough. What the rest of us do, and we think we're doing an awesome job, is we sit there and we cuddle them and we say, you're doing an awesome job here, and we think that you can improve this C so you'll be excellent in everything, and we're going to really spend more time on this and help you. We focus on that weakness because the C is the weakness. Because in the pool of all the people coming in through the system that we're in, or as Seth Godin, the author of Tribes, calls it, is it's the factory. And there's a defect in the factory because you have a C in English or whatever the course is. So we focus in and we drill in on that weakness. Now, if you think you're immune to this, Gallup poll says 77% of Americans think that a student's lowest grade deserves the most attention and time. So this is international, but where Gallup pulled American data. So this is where our focus is because we're in this system. So just think about if we did this in corporate America. Let's think about a character that we all know, Steve Jobs. Here he is. We think of Steve Jobs as very visionary, as a very passionate, as an eloquent speaker, as a great salesman, just this awesome individual. But the reality is the people that worked with him think of him like this. He was belligerent, impossible to work with, yelling and screaming, oftentimes acting like a child, just an impossible character to work for and to work with. And that's been well documented story. So as we look at guys like this, if corporate America is dealing with Steve Jobs like we deal with kids, here's what they would say. The board of directors would have come to Steve and said, you're a terrible people person. So what we're going to do, because that's a weakness, we're going to have you in personality training. We're going to have you in teamwork training. We're going to have you in courses how to be a better CEO and leader, because that's what would make you awesome. Right? We would focus in on his weaknesses. But instead of doing that, if they did that, we would not have iPhones today. We would not have iPads today. There's something about that. What happens in corporate America, the way they do things, where profit is real and it's a must, we don't try to fix a person's weaknesses. We compensate for their weaknesses. Right? We don't try to fix them. We compensate for them. Think about this picture here. Professional baseball players, the pitchers, this is their batting averages from 1960s to current time. And you'll notice one thing, they were always pretty bad. They weren't really never good batters, but they've gone to atrocious. It's a joke when a professional pitcher steps to the plate. So what's going on here? Professional baseball is a big business. What's going on here is that the professional sports do not spend time with their pitchers in batting practice. Does that make sense? They're the worst batters in the world, and we are not trying to improve. They don't have a C in batting. They have an F in batting. They are below failing in batting. So what we would do as parents is we would take them and we would put them in the batting cage, and we would work on it and work on it and work on it and work on it and work on it until they did something. But coaches will tell you the pitchers, if you work on them really, really, really hard, they're only going to be mediocre. They're never going to be stars. So, but while we're working on that, we're killing their ability to pitch. Because what happens is I can move them from a terrible batter to a mediocre batter. But if I work on their pitching skill where they're naturally talented, I can move them from moving a 99-mile-an-hour fastball to a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. It can be an incremental change, but that can mean millions of dollars of revenue. That can mean won games. That can mean instead of one bat to plate, 0 bats to plate. It can be awesome, because what we do in industry is we focus on a person's strength, not their weakness. And that's where the difference is from what we see in educational models and the way we think of in culture, because we're in such a factory cookie cutter mentality, to what the reality is in the world. Is we have this kind of crazy backwards focus. I love this example. This is, I don't know this guy personally, but friends of mine know him, and so I got to reach out and meet Lou. Lou is, and you can look him up on the web. Lou is a New York. He was a New York attorney and successful. But what Lou is passionate about all of his life, where his great, powerful skill is. Now notice what I just said, his passion and his skill, they go together, was Walt Disney. Now, some of you may be Disney fans. I pick on this because my wife is a big Disney fan, and I found this very entertaining when friends of mine that are friends of Lou's. And so what he did is he started a business, and I think it's called Walt Disney World Radio, WDW Radio. And he quit his law practice, moved to Orlando, Florida, and is now a Disney expert. I'm pretty sure that he's making a lot more money. Clearly, he's a lot happier. But the reason I point Lou out to you is because this is an important element of what we're looking at, trying to help us focus on our natural skills and passions. There's success to be had out there. Now, why are we talking about this Disney guy when we're talking about high school? Because, I'm not really doing high school here. What I'm trying to do is help people find, and this might include you and your students, how do you find your strengths and develop a path to win with your strengths? And that's where we want to go. Before we, some of you are asking, I'm just looking over here at the question, I'm sorry. Some of you are asking, is it normal for the stream to buffer for long periods, 30 seconds or more? I'm missing those parts. One thing that is true here on the web, on what we're doing, is we are streaming using using GoToWebinar, using Google Hangouts, and there is a delay for FCC reasons. There's a delay because this is considered a broadcast. So you might be seeing some delay. However, this will be back set up in a replay mode where you can get access to this later. So maybe that will help. All right, so let me talk about how you find your strengths. This is what I spend most of my time doing with people, professionals and everything else. And we're now looking at how we can do this with you and those parents that are moving their kids to college. That's one thing I've noticed at the university here as we move kids into engineering school. One of our great struggles that we're focusing on is how do you get kids to move to the right spot at the right time? When you're bringing kids in with high school educations that don't really have a clue how the world works, how do you help them figure things out? And we're in discussions. I was discussing with our dean here at the university, how do we do that better? Because we, and by no means are we any worse than anybody else, but we're pretty lame at it. The dropout rates are staggering. The people that move into engineering and move into engineering fields, and by the way, it's not just true of engineering, but when they move out there into industry, they don't, only a few of them prosper. In other words, only a few, 40% at best, love what they do. So how do we do a better job of that? So since you're the teacher in charge, how do you do a better job? So let me just give you this, and this is some of the links that are on here. This is what we do with everybody that comes into our graduate program. So this is what we might call background research. This is how you can help coach your students. And that's what we're talking about is coaching. Stop looking at the college as the end game, because it's not. It's a path, and it maybe is the wrong path, but it's a path. What do you see as your calling? There's a link to this calling exercise we have, and so I'm gonna kind of walk through an example of this right here. Let me just step back here and let me walk through a quick example of what's going on here. when we talk about calling, calling for us and our kids is, what are they naturally gifted at? What are their natural passions and talents? How do you find those? And it's not through an assessment. It's not through what jobs are available. It's through looking at what their interest areas are. So what we do is we look at calling. It has nothing to do with money. And that's what, if you download the calling exercise, it will talk you through this. And I'm just going to give you the high level. We take a sheet of paper. We think through, if you have a child, what do they love to do? It's got to be something they do. What are they interested in? And as a parent, you probably see some of that. Where is their attention? Where's their time? What books do they like to read? What captures their attention? You know, one question I like to ask people is, you walk into a bookstore, where do you go? As you turn on a television, where do you go to? As you search the web, where do you go to? Where is your natural attention? Because that tells you something about that. It has nothing to do with money. And through this, what we look at is, okay, how can I then, and by the way, when we do this for professionals, I just fill up a sheet of paper. And here's things I love. And I've seen everything from, I love travel, I love speaking, I love, detail, I love computers, I love programming, I love, snow skiing. I mean, there's all kinds of things. What we look at is those things we love to do and are passionate about. We move to another sheet of paper that we start looking at. Who's doing that now? How can I make a living? Well, actually, the second sheet is, how can I make a living doing this? So you see, do the calling exercise. What are the top 5 ideas, that second bullet point? And then we look at, what are the top 5 ideas? What are the things I can do doing this? Now, this is where we have blinders on as well as our culture. Because what we're thinking of is, well, I like medicine. I like helping people, so therefore I should be a doctor or a nurse. We don't realize that there's multiple paths of doing that. We don't realize that I have a guy I know that he's making a full-time living in the world of medicine. He has 0 medical degrees. What he has is personal experience. Now, he's not illegal, not offering medical advice, but he is really helping people medically, probably making more than most medical doctors are making, because he has a passion and understands stuff. So what we're looking for is, how do you move from the things you're passionate about to the things that you can do for a living? And then the last thing is, who's doing these things now? So what we do is we go through this process called a reverse interview, where we have people go out and talk to people. Now, so if I go back here, let me back way up here, and I'll come back to all that. If I look at this, the cradle to college to cubicle, if you want to know where you're going to end up, don't talk to college professors. They're in the middle. You want to talk to the people living in it. So if I want to be a musician and a professional musician, talk to professional musicians. If I want to be an engineer, talk to engineers. If I want to be a medical doctor, talk to a medical doctor. As a high school person, this is what I should be doing. I should be spending my time talking to those living the dream, talking to those living that path I'm going. Because if you want advice of how to get from where I am to where I want to be, that's how to do it. But we don't want to get caught up in job descriptions, because just like I'm showing you this fellow right here, Lou, it's not about a job description. When I was at the Refresh conference, some lady came up to me and said, her son was into Pokemon. And she was like, I don't know what to do with him. I can't get him off of Pokemon. And I was like, well, maybe, and she was like, he's blogging about it and he's doing this stuff and people are paying attention to him, but I can't get him to pay attention to his schoolwork. Well, there's people who make a living on Pokemon doing what he's doing. He could grow what he's doing right now as a high school kid into his passion. I mean, we got to remember, we as parents, we have blinders. Bill Gates is famous for, or his dad is famous for saying, when Bill Gates was in high school, all he did was played around with computers. Now, remember, at Bill Gates was in high school, computers were kind of a toy. And Bill Gates his dad used to tell him, quit playing around in that toy and get busy studying. Right? If Bill had taken his dad's advice, counsel, command, where would we be? So you have to think about sometimes the path that they're going down naturally, if we foster it, if we water it, there's something there. There is a lot of people in the military today that from video games, there are a lot of people flying drones, and they will tell you that the video game experience was valuable. So that's where we're looking at, is how do we find these natural strengths? And then we develop a plan. Now this is on the worksheet. So and on there, there's some stuff about, how do you set goals? How do you set deadlines? How do you know what you need to know? I mean, look, what we're doing is not just following a course of action just because some company A says, here's the course you need to take. Or company B says, here's the curriculum you need to buy. As faculty members, we get the chance to direct our curriculum. We get the chance to make the decisions. We do this we do this in the university all the blooming time. This is a normal thing. When we have a student who's interested in something, and we're like, well, we need a course credit for that, and you're passionate and interested in that, we need a course credit. What we do is assign a special topics in, for the kid for Pokemon, I would assign a special topics research course in internet sales through web video game. We come up with some fancy title to make it make sense, but it's a course that helps them do what they're doing. So that's the path that we're looking to help foster here, that you need to, because again, if you look at the stats, 60% of the people are going to find themselves in jobs they don't like. Now, I can go back to this guy right here. I don't have time, but I can show you hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of examples of people that many of them are friends of mine, that are doing jobs I cannot describe to you. Professional bloggers, There's a guy that we just flew into the university that I was just meeting with a few minutes ago. He is a professional podcaster, blogger on engineering careers. He's somewhat of a career coach. He left the world of engineering to do what he's doing. There are guys who left insurance agencies to be professional bloggers. They're just, and I'm picking on some fields I know a lot about, but they're just all over the map. There's all kinds of crazy things out there. They don't fit neatly into a job description, but they're people making a living and loving what they're doing. So let me tell you a little bit about what we're trying to do now. I'll share this with you. Shoot us emails or anything like this. If you have questions, Nancy, you're saying really with a question mark. I'm not real sure what your really was. So if you can fill me in that, if I can help. But here's one thing that we're offering to do. I guess I should say we've been demanded to do in our company thing, is to offer coaching. And I'm going to show this up here. Let me do this in a little bit different way. I'm going to minimize this guy here and try to pull up a web page here for us, just to show us how this really works. Bear with me a minute, because perhaps I wasn't prepared enough for what I'm doing here. Okay, so here is on our web page, we have under career, or actually under key products, we're doing some coaching sessions. Now, this isn't for everybody, but for those of you that are really looking to kind of sit down and drill down, this is what I do with professionals, and well, I think almost constantly. We start probably 5 to 10 companies a year doing this process. Not to say that's where you're heading or where your son or daughter's heading, but that's what we're doing. But what we're trying to do is help people develop a vision. So if you can grab these worksheets and grab stuff and think through this stuff, awesome. If you need help with it, that's what we're looking to help you do, is to get clarity here on what to do and how to make this happen for you. So you can find that just at the Ask Dr. Callahan website. So if you, well, obviously I'm having trouble operating my machine now. So let me get back here. Excuse me I'm just an engineer. I have no technical ability. That's becoming evident to you, right? Okay, there we go. Okay. Yes, Nancy, Pokemon. Yes, there's there is if you, and here's a clue to us. If we find anything out there that's being done, I mean, look at Lou, Walt Disney World. We think about Walt Disney World as who's making money in that? Disney World, travel agents. Well, he's pierced in between, and I don't know all what he does, but he's making, you know, a significant living in Disney World. Pokemon is, I don't know how much money is spent on Pokemon, but let's just assume there's you know, $100 million a year spent on Pokemon. I don't know what the number is. What that means is there's a whole bunch of people that are interested in Pokemon. So if you put up websites about Pokemon, you'll you know, you get attention from that. There's a friend of mine. His name is Cliff Rosencraft, and he started. If you guys remember the TV show Lost, and this just staggers me. He did a podcast on the TV show Lost. In other words, you watch the TV show Lost, and for an hour you can listen to him talk about the TV show Lost. Who cares, right? He had 17,000 people around the world listening to that, and that was the launch of his business, which he's got multiple businesses doing stuff like that. Can we see the previous slide, Chris? You're asking me. Previous slide. Maybe it's this slide, I'm hoping. And by the way, most of all these slides are downloadable on the website for those of you that need. And while we're doing this, I'm gonna just hit some questions. And that's really all we've got here to share with you. I'm gonna try to deal with some questions now, and so if you need to get off of here, we totally get it. And if you want to email me, again, you can email me. It's just right there, dale@dalecallahan.com. Yes, the slides, all the slides are available on the refresh page that I sent you earlier. And some of you are asking, can you start with a Rose? You're asking, can I start with worksheets? Yes, I mean that'd be a great. As a matter of fact, anybody. One of the things that we do in the coaching, this is what we do anyway, is the first thing we do is get you to do these worksheets, because if you're doing, you need to think through it some first and kind of think through and struggle. Now, this is my experience. People will think through these worksheets, and because we have tunnel vision. We think that the only way to, you know, like for instance, there was a gal I was working with not long ago, and she says, I'm a nurse, and I hate being in hospitals, and I don't really like being in doctor's offices. She said, so basically I'm unemployed. Now she wasn't, she was working at the time, but she felt like that's the trap, because her tunnel vision was, this is the only thing I like to do in nursing, and that's the only way you make money, nursing. So we talked about, what does she like about nursing? She liked helping patients. And so we, you know, realized there's an industry called patient advocate. So she now works for a drug company, talking to patients all day long as a nurse, advising them on health issues, on drug issues, on stuff like that. And she loves it. And she's growing like mad in her company. She's getting massive amount of pay raises, and she's doing awesome. But when she came in and she had filled out these forms, she had that tunnel vision of, here's the only way to make money doing this. And we all do that. We all have these very narrow visions of how do you make a living doing things. So yeah, start with the forms, see where you can get, and see what happens, see how that helps you. Okay, Nancy, yes. Yes, Nancy, and I so appreciate your comment. I'm a college professor. Let me just give you a hint. Now, I'm not down on college, but I think it's not, we have to understand the universities do not own the education of the world. We're just one of the models. Google is a massive amount of education. And what you're really looking at in most colleges, and this is, all the jokes we used to make about college professors are true. Most of them have been college professors for years and don't really know how to do what they are teaching. That's just the cold hard fact. I'm not saying they don't add value, that you have to be an expert in industry to be able to teach things. There's a difference, and I understand that. But if you want to know what the world looks like as an accountant, accounting faculty member may not know. No, they may, but I wouldn't count on it, because where are they spending their time? Their industry is education. Their industry is writing papers. Their industry is research. Are things like that. They're not as focused on the industry out there of doing it. One of the key things you want to do with your kids, no matter what else you do, is whatever they want to do, find people doing it. If you go to the refresh page, if you're on LinkedIn, which is an awesome tool for doing this, there's a video that I put there on how to use LinkedIn to find people doing what you want to do. The slide before, somebody's asking the slide before, please. So I'm going to jump up here and see if that will help. All right, and somebody's sending me a question via email, which kind of looks a little bit, me focused on kind of the same thing. Basically, I'm kind of rewording it. If my son or daughter is had kind of gone to where they need to be in math, but I still need credit. How do I get the math credit if they've kind of passed where they need to be and they're in 11th grade? I'm paraphrasing the question a little bit. And here's again, we find this when we talk to people all the time. Let's say you've done algebra 2 or trig, and that's all you really need for where you're going in college or wherever you're heading. What do you do for your math credit? If somebody was interested in music, what I would do is do them a special topic assignment, or spend a year looking at how does I would define it. I would just write up, here's the course. How does math apply to music? Just have them do research on that, because there's lots of applications. How do you take music and make money? Because is that technically math? No, but what you're focusing on is education here. And you create a course. Again, we do this at the university and then charge people boatloads of cash all the time. And I'm not saying that's unethical or wrong. Actually, that's a great service we do to people, or for people, is by helping them by creating course content that fits them perfectly. And the further up you go in the education model, the more that you get. It's hard to get that at undergraduate, but at master's or PhD, that's about all there is. So it's up to you as a faculty member to define the course and how do you package those things together. All right, let's see. Okay, Erica, you're asking as a parent, how do you do this? How do you have the flexibility? And the first thing is, one of the things I think we get caught up in is the rules, because a lot of times our cover schools, or whatever we call them, where they'll tell us we need so many math credits, but what the cover schools are not defining is what makes a math credit. Now, yours may be different. Okay, so I realize different states and things do different things. But be very careful of looking into the rules, and don't read too much into the rules. Again, this is typical industry stuff and typical college stuff. If it says you need math credit, then you define the math class. But what we do is we think, okay, they said I need math credit, and therefore the next math is geometry, and therefore I've got to go do this. I've got to find a geometry course, a geometry book, a geometry DVDs, and all the stuff that I need to be. But no, you can define it. So I think you probably have a lot more flexibility than you think you have. All All right, so I'm looking at questions. Jim, how does a college degree fall into following the path of one's passion? How important should parents emphasize a degree? I think it depends on the path. And here's how I would know. If you talk to people that are going down the path that you want to go down and they're saying you need a degree in X, Y, and Z to do this. And by the way, don't talk. You notice this thing down here at the bottom, repeat 5 times, never get just one person's perspective. If you're hearing the same thing over and over again, to be an accountant, you have to have a CPA. Therefore, you have to have an undergraduate in accounting. That's probably a true statement. I don't know that. To be an engineer, you have to have an engineering degree. That's not technically a true statement all the time. To be a medical doctor and practicing surgery, you probably need a medical, license, and so that means a degree. So there's things like that are clear. But to be there are so many things that you don't need degrees. As a matter of fact, if you look at an industry and you go and talk to people doing what they're doing, and you find out what was your degree in, well, the degree so often has nothing whatsoever to do. I just talked to a guy yesterday that he has a degree in English literature, and what he does for a living is builds nuclear power plants. He has no engineering background whatsoever, but he's very much in an engineering world, in a very technical world. But how he got there, I have no clue. But the point is college in the path? Maybe. But don't just take our word for it at the university. At what age do I recommend coaching? I would say, once you get into the teen years, you can do it. And by the way, let me just tell you about coaching. There's no clean answer. When you do these forums, you'll have a lot of fuzziness. But I think once you move into the teen years, once you see interest areas, and this is, by the way, this is what you're going to notice. I noticed this with 40 and 50-year-olds too, is when you start showing people that there's options that are beyond the cookie cutter option, they get excited. And when your kids start seeing stuff for real, they get excited. I mean, one of the coolest things that we do with that my wife does, I shouldn't take credit, but is just takes the kids to see stuff, what's going on in industry. And they just get, the world opens up to them. They understand what's going on out there. And if at the worst case, it helps them connect, why does science matter? So how much do we need to push for standardized testing for homeschool students? Oh my gosh, Sandy. Let me just tell you, the cookie cutter model, one of the reasons it works is because in the college and university, we force you into it. And those two cookie cutters are called the ACT and the SAT. Do they matter? Yeah. If you're going into college, primarily for scholarships. Do they matter? Yes. But you don't have to get too focused on them because, again, there's some very basic information. Matter of fact, we have a partner we work with on our website. She does coaching on the ACT and SAT specifically for passing those. So I think you kind of got it in. You got to realize, though, it's not the end. It may be the path. Now, if your son or daughter wants to be a bulldozer driver and this has nothing to do with it, well, then maybe it's not the path. But the key is to keep the end in mind. Where are we trying to get to, and don't get too caught up on the details. And that's what we so often are doing. Okay. Hey, Linda, how do you start if your teenager's not interested in anything? When I ask, what would you like to learn? Simply, I get, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I totally get it. Probably they do know, but they don't know, if that makes sense. And I think and maybe it's a case of, if I'm in that situation, they really don't know, which I can understand that. I know adults who tell me the same thing, who are working and making a living. I've coached an executive with a bank. When I asked him, what do you really want to do? He said, I don't know, but it's not this, I think you go into the explore mode. you got to get them out and from in front of the television, in front of the computer, in front of the video games or whatever their sports or whatever they're interested in, because it may be that maybe their sport is their interest. By the way, there's a lot of ways to make money in sports that have nothing to do with playing the game. But maybe you just have to expose them to stuff. A friend of mine told me the other day, he said, when I was in high school, my dad did the best thing he ever could have done for me is he took his friends and he would just send me off with them to their work and said, I want you to go see what Joe does. He does construction. I want you to see what Sam does. He's an accountant. He says, and it was the most eye-opening experience because we weren't talking about it, learning about it on television. We were seeing it for real. So it's just really the exposure. And we don't get that in the public and the private school systems. They would love to do more of that. They can't, just the sheer volume of students, they can't. Most of you have a tremendous amount of flexibility what you can do. And by the way, if you contact companies and say, hey, my son or daughter's interested in this, I think you're going to find a lot more willingness to talk than you probably think you will. You probably will think you'll get a closed door. That's if you're talking to the right people, you probably will not. And if you can't find those people, shoot me an email. We can help you find them. I very often talk to people who want to talk to students. Okay, Brad, trying to find get beyond academic interest only and excel. I would say the same thing. Exposure. Nobody pays you. Like a buddy of mine who just got out of the Army, retired Army. He said nobody's paying me to take over cities in industry. And that's a reality of people coming out of the military. The same is true for academic studies. Nobody's probably paying you directly for just doing academic studies. They should lead to something. How do you find that? Now, it may lead to teaching or something like that, but get them out, get them doing. Let's see if I think I've missed some questions in here. Do I know about Johnson O'Connor Research Foundation? I do not. So I can look that up and tell you, but I don't really know. I know one thing a lot of people do, and by the way, there's probably not one single answer for anything like there's always true, is when people start giving you standardized questionnaires and that those questionnaires fit you into career fields. And I remember I took one in high school or college, one Campbell Strong test. I think I was supposed to be either a farmer or a bus driver. So glad I didn't follow those advice, especially the farmer. But it might be that it takes multiple levels, but I don't know. I think you kind of explore. And by the way, when you explore with your kids, explore with them and help them to look over your shoulder and make decisions for you. Let's see if I've missed something else here. Okay, I think I've got most of them. I'm not. I can't be totally sure, but it looks like we've got most of them, and we are probably. Let's see where we are in time. We've got just a few more minutes. We've got, I don't know if anybody wants to throw in another question here. I think somebody's commenting. I'll just say somebody's commenting that they've noticed some universities really try to revamp things. To meet industry demands, to meet the demands of students. Yeah, I mean, some of us are doing awesome stuff, and I will say, as much fun as I make of the university stuff, usually when you talk to faculty members and administration, they want to help. They really want to make the connections. It's just sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and they're caught in a bubble just like we are, and some of them are better than others. Some of them have a lot more industry connections than others. And I don't mean schools as a whole. I mean departments. You got to look very granular. One university may have a nursing group that's done an awesome job, and their business group may be totally disconnected. So, they're very much run in silos. That's how universities run things. Um, one of the things that I think we want to think about is that at the university level, when I'm looking at that path, how do we? Is it number one? Is it the path to go? Isn't the direction to go? But again, you start there. You start at the end, and then you kind of come back there to see where that path is. Let me just give you a hint. We have a massive amount of competition. There's sites called Udemy, and that's udemy.com. That's one of many. And you can go there and get courses that you pay for, or your students pay for, and how to do just anything. And there's courses that are using this stuff, that the new software, and forgive me for not knowing, that you use to program iPhones. And I know I ran into a CEO of a company the other day, and he says, I'm trying to find developers for iPhones, and I'm having to pay them $120,000 to $140,000 a year just to get the ones who got experience. You can go on Udemy and learn how to program iPhones. And by the way, this guy doesn't, even though he's a PhD in electrical engineering, he doesn't care about degrees. He cares about getting the work done. And I'm finding that more and more, because so much is available right at your fingertips for hundreds of dollars, and that might either replace or supplement what you're doing at a university thing. All right, so let's see. Thank you, somebody. Some of you are answering questions for me. Awesome. Thank you, Nathaniel. Nathaniel's a buddy of mine in our neighboring state. Folks, how important is colleges to be accredited? That's a good question. We at the university put a tremendous amount of attention on accreditation. I have never, again, talking to the people with the end in mind, who's doing it, but I have never found a corporate city and a corporate hiring that looked really deeply at accreditation. As a matter of fact, let me give you two hints that you may or may not like. Your ACT and SAT scores only matter at one time in life, and that's when you enter the university. The minute you enter and have a term under you, it's irrelevant, because the only thing it was really good for is entrance, and it's not really that relevant for that, but also for scholarship. And once you get started, usually the scholarships are gone, because it's a recruiting tool. So it's good for that. The college degree is good for your first job. Once you got that, people are looking at experience. Now, are there little nuances in between? Yes. But generally speaking, when people call me looking for people, they never say, I'm looking for engineers. They're looking for experience. So that's just what's going to sell it. So when we have people come through the university who have experience already, or who are getting experience during their degree, that probably counts more. Yes, thank you, Nathaniel, for pointing out how to spell Udemy. By the way, I struggled with that the first time somebody told me about it. Let me look here. Okay, looking at the Johnson O'Connor Research Foundation. Okay, and I'm not familiar with that, but that's is that test valuable? Maybe, yeah. I mean, it's $650. It may be. I'm not. It's an aptitude test. I don't really like. This is a personal thing. I'm not a big fan of aptitude tests, because they put you in a box. As opposed to, I mean, the world is filled with opportunity to make money, and those kind of things put you into these little boxes of what career fields are. 10 years ago, we didn't know that there were such things as professional bloggers and podcasters, and yet there's plenty of them out there now. We might have called them something else. Okay. Yes, Nancy, especially if a degree is accompanied by valid experience. And let me just I'm on. We need to close now, and I'll just say, but if you get a student who has talked to industries, and let's just say they go a very traditional university route, but they have talked to multiple industries. They've gone out there and talked to accountants, to lawyers, to doctors, and they've interviewed with them, they shadowed them, whatever they want to do. I mean, really get out there and have conversations with them. They already have a leg up. I mean, because generally speaking, the graduates, now I'm talking about college graduates, don't have a clue what's going on in industry. I mean, a majority of them, they don't have a clue. I used to teach undergraduate senior engineers that were about to graduate, and most of them had never seen the work environment nor knew what was out there. They just thought it was going to look just like school. So if your student just knows how to go out there and talk to people, that skill is extremely valuable, and they've already got a heads up. Not only that, they have contacts in industry that they could go to work for. Say if you're going into accounting and you could go work for an accounting firm while you're in the accounting school. That experience working for the accounting firm while you're in school is almost more valuable than getting a degree. I mean, it's certainly a major supplement. So I would do that no matter what we do. So I'm gonna cut it there. We do have some other questions. Please feel free to shoot us those in email. And again, you can hit me at dale@dalecallahan.com. It's probably the easiest one to hit me at. But any email that you can find for me, we will get it, or they will get it to me. Thank you so much for your time. And for links, if we can help this, you will get an email about the replay of this for any of you interested. And thank you so much for the opportunity. And we will be sending out an email about what we're going to do next. But hey, we would love to get your feedback on what we should do next time and when. What's the right time for you? Thank you so much for your time today.